the nowhere to the now here. From the invisible to the visible. Broadcasting live from Fort Collins, Colorado. Cosmic Living Radio with Dr. Joseph Zdanowski. And thank you for joining me on another Classroom on the Air. Today is December 10th, 2016. And today we have a special guest. His name is Ted Winslow. And Ted is an engineer. And he's a developer and primarily, at this point, a sound healer. Before we get into Ted, I'd like to continue with last week and cover our lesson and see how, at least how I like to connect it. But because really everything that we're talking about on Cosmic Living Radio is scientific and it's reproducible, and it definitely sometimes sounds out there and strange, but it's not even a new idea, so it's just new to the person that thinks it sounds strange. But when you investigate how profound, it's like the law of gravity is very profound. And when you're a kid and you kind of start to learn it and you see the dynamics in that, and there's a lot more there to it than you actually thought, if you were honest. And so sometimes simplicity is extremely profound. So we'll get back into Ted in a little bit. So on last week's class, when I refer to the one law, I speak of positive action and negative response. And there's the attraction. It's a cosmic law. It's a good idea to know this. And when you're violating that law, simultaneously what starts to happen, sometimes not right away, is that things don't work as easy. And so that's where the instruction, the way is easy, the burden light, comes in. That, hey, check engine light. It's the way isn't easy right here. So note to self, like if you haven't committed too much, you sometimes can refocus your path. It's just you need time and experience. Somebody who's young learning something complex, they tend to bang into everything over and over and over until they figure it out. But, you could also use your mind and think it out and save yourself some bumps. Okay, so positive action, negative response. That's happening within a person. So when we turn positive to the positive, we have issues, we have disharmony. And when we respond and we're on point, positive action, negative response are attracting, what we have then is someone that I like to describe on tone. Notice the word tone, because that's our guest today, Ted Winslow. He's a sound healer. He's coming up shortly. He will have the floor. And I just want to show you how to tie it in, because when you're off tone, first of all, who wants to hear anything off tone? So that's not a good thing. So without it being, a way to kind of tease, it's really more or less an indicator to, note to self, like, wake up. When you do that, you get a lot of, for the most part, you could pretty much make the decision that you need to make up to the moment you do, before you put your foot in your mouth, so to speak, and stay on point, have proper polarity, stay on tone, stay aligned to the source field, as David Wilcock would say. I simply call it the divine design. And if there is a divine design, it needs to be held together. By what? By something. Well, that something is a divine frequency, or a divine vibration, you could also say. And so notice again here how that relates to sound. So we're coming up to where Ted could explain to us how he takes it to the next level and can, on a scientific level, show a profound difference in the physical body. Because when someone is stressed out, autoreactive, when they are complaining of symptoms, I like to call it in my office stress system malfunction. And if that lasts for 25 years, we'll kick a disease on the end of that. But whatever the manifestation is, you might have a big lesion, you might have all kinds of things, and we can call it something else. But what caused that effect of a tumor is stress system malfunction. And so it's something that we need to learn to manage in a stress-crazed world. And a world that has lots of dissonant sounds that do not resonate in a proper way for a long period of time. In fact, they could produce disease because they stress out the adrenal glands, they stress out the heart and the immune system ultimately. So anyhow, we're coming up to a 60-second commercial break. Stay tuned. Ted Winslow coming up.
Do you have any health challenges that concern you? If you said yes, you are ready to evolve yourself. Call today and qualify for a free pain treatment. 970-667-4669.
I'm Dr. Zdanowski, chiropractor, radio host, author of Evology, a new healthcare paradigm for the 21st century. My all-natural approach is affordable and can show improvement in as little as one visit. Truth be told, holistic health starts with a healthy life plan, and those who execute that plan over a consistent course catch up, heal, and thrive. I guarantee it. If your health is fading and on prescription drugs, if you want your energy back, deeper sleep, pain-free, or refocus an unresolved personal injury case, call me and let's get you in the best shape of your life. Schedule a visit with me, Dr. Z.
We are located at the Overland Trail Shops in LaPorte. Call 970-667-4669. EVOLyourself.com.
And thank you for staying attuned to Cosmic Living Radio. Okay, let's get back into it. So our guest today is Ted Winslow. Ted is an engineer. He's a developer of sound healing technology. He's also a musician. So Ted, what got you into basically learning about frequencies you pretty much can't even hear a lot of times, and kind of incorporating that into your world and your interest in helping people heal? So
well,
go ahead.
I started out when I was in my teens or whatever, like most young teenagers or whatever, or products of the 80s when they had heavy metal come out. I had to pick up a guitar and wanted to be the next Eddie Van Halen. And I progressed with that and started working as a studio musician, where I got the taste of what it was like being in the recording studio and in that environment, and just became just overwhelmed with it. Just loved every aspect of it, the creative aspect, the sound design. And so I started studying engineering and went to the University of Colorado, where I worked on an engineering degree, and started playing with different sound healing aspects as far as to what they were doing in changing me. So at the time, I would actually listen to different classical music compositions and break that down, and started realizing I started retaining certain stuff and manifesting a little bit different stuff. And so that led me more going into sound healing. So you can think back in the 80s where we all had these long hair and these bangle bracelets running up our arms and playing hundreds of watts of music that was just screaming through the venues that we were playing at the time. And we would be playing at night, at like sometimes till midnight, till 1 o'clock in the morning, and I would get off the stage and could not come down, could not get my body to rest. And so that's what led me to looking at the different frequencies and how can I change my dynamic being on this elevated, as you just put in your fourth gear,
Yeah.
at a time when most people should be in bed, and watching my surrounding environment start to self-medicate to find ways to bring themselves into a more relaxed state. So I started bringing in ideas of altered tunings or different tunings and changing the frequency, because as I'm going into the studio and I'm looking at frequencies, now all of a sudden I'm realizing that we're tuning all of our orchestras and our instruments to this pitch or frequency that's 440 hertz. And oddly enough, that is a very dissonant frequency. And I kind of I'm jumping ahead.
Yeah, what is a dissonant frequency, by the way? Because I know I kind of read some of your stuff, and it said something, you were comparing 440 to 432.
Right. So 440 is there's a lot of aspects of it that's not harmonious. So dissonance is going to create tension inside of you. It's going to make your body just kind of like cringe or just kind of be all tensed up. It creates disease, so to speak. And
yeah, I mean, there's a good reason for that, because when somebody's in that fight or flight, they're basically upsetting their hormones, which is the endocrine, and they're upsetting their central nervous system, which is your brain and your spinal cord. And even though I said brain and spinal cord, they're actually one. So you're basically upsetting your endocrine and your central nervous system, and that's a big part of who we are when it comes to having, our vessel to be on point with. So, fourth gear and stressing out and not coming out of that is extremely dangerous over a long period of time.
Right. It's how do you come out of that? Which I found it oddly enough, thinking that creating that environment, how many of the great bands do you know have broken up because all of a sudden the members couldn't get along or couldn't get together?
That's right. And the one law essentially is when two positives approach each other, there's repulsion, and a healthy brain basically knows when to listen and when not to, and there's a give and take. But when there's an unhealthy exchange, there's two people coming at each other in fourth gear, they're bound for an accident. All right. Thank you for staying attuned to Cosmic Living Radio. Cosmic Living Radio is a classroom on the air. We're here with Ted Winslow, talking about sound and how it relates to the macro picture of the cosmos and the micro picture of our world and how it could help us. And so Ted is talking about his path. And so let's continue. So you were saying about dissonant frequencies. They're basically above they kind of stimulate the brain as opposed to bringing you down or integrating you or kind of into center, right?
Right, exactly. So it's kind of like as we talk about sound and energy, everything is at a vibration. You think of colors, there's certain colors of the spectrums. Well, those are all vibrating at a certain frequency that's allowing us to see. As well as the frequencies that we listen to, such as we just described with the 440 hertz. I would play a chord in 528, which is actually the musical note C, and then 440 is the musical note A. And I could play it to a group of people, and they would listen to the 440, and they go, yeah, okay, that's familiar, of course, because it's in all of our media. It's in all of our pop recordings, standard recordings. That's the standard tuning. And then I'd play them the 528, and they could instantly tell that there was a difference. And the harmonic value is more in line with each other. So there's not the dissonance that we were talking about. Speaking of with people such as those band members, when you can have something of not harmony, you can have it called out of phase, which when in the engineering terms, if I have two instruments and I'm trying to bring them in and they're not harmonious to each other, they become out of phase, and I have to work to get those into the same vibration, the same type of energy, so that we can all hear it. I traced a little bit of about the 440 is where it became important. It bounced around through history, but Joseph Goebbels, who was a German politician for the Third Reich, and it come out in 1933, 45, and he is rumored to have stated that this 440 pitch is of extraordinary importance. And shortly thereafter, the British Institute of British Standard Institute officially adopted this A440. And I find it ironic thinking in that time period that some of the greatest ears of the world, coming out of Vienna, those who understand music with classical eras, Baroque eras, that you're dealing with some of the greatest periods and ears coming through with Vienna and Germany and England and Italy, and what was coming over here from what we've been developing over here in the United States. And now all of a sudden we've got the standard pitch of 440 that pretty much everybody's starting to tune to. So that's what
there was a movement in a certain sense. I think I read somewhere that
Yes.
it was, I guess, I mean, I'm sure it was just more than the Rockefellers, but there was like a standard that was made, and they brought it to the 440 because of what it actually did to society as opposed to didn't do, or kind of the traditional music. It was a change. It was a major change, and it was, as science was developing, they probably also understood more than we think about how it was affecting us. And for example, fluorescent lights are flickering at 60 cycles a second, and you can't really see it. So, but yet it's affecting the nervous system. So if somebody has seizures, they're the ones that tend to, could pick that out because they're actually affected by it, because a seizure is 60 cycles a second, just like fluorescent lights. But it's also a dissonant frequency where fluorescent lights are there because it's to stimulate the work environment. But too much stimulation, like we said earlier, will basically, you'll short circuit, burn out. So the 440 was instituted, and things kind of like changed.
Oh yeah. And you think about that so music bioenergetically is going to affect our body chemistry and our psychoneuroimmunology and our health. And it's now our body is vibrating at this musical dissonance of the 440. And it was no wonder that coming off the stage after having 100-watt amplifiers blasting this at me at the volumes it was on that, we were all pumped up. And it's like, okay, I cannot change my frequency, which water and frequency impact all of life. Our bodies are our main life source. We're 70% water, 75% water, and then our brain and heart's about 73% of that. Yeah. And energy's just transferred through that vibration.
And actually the pacer of the heart, right, would be something that is pounding away and influencing the fluids, and how those fluids, if they're harmonious, that produces a harmonious, healthy environment. But if they're aberrant, they basically create that dissonance in a sense that doesn't promote integration. It pretty much will promote stimulation. And when you're stimulated for too long of a period of time, you literally get locked into that. And thank you for staying attuned. When you are attuned, you are allowing yourself to stay in the secret place, remain in the secret place of the Most High. And another way to say that is you stay in the place of integration, where your left and your right brain are working together. And the minute you go into either it's been described as fight or flight, but it's been described and lightly described, but it's extremely serious. Stress system malfunction leads to disease. And most people that are in that stress state are not integrated at the brain level. And if you're not integrated at the brain level, then the body and the mind have trouble communicating and staying in alignment. And this is healthcare. That's what people forget. This is the basis for healthcare. So you were saying about tuning instruments, and so you had to tune at the 440 because I think the piano is.
Piano, yeah, all the pianos are tuned at 440. And so then all the instruments that are going to sit there with an orchestra are going to automatically go up to tune to that 440. Fortunately, now there's a lot of tuners that you can change that on the hertz, or you can mathematically derive, which is what I do with a lot of my compositions. I'll mathematically derive it to a different frequency with whatever that frequency is going to be, such as 528 is going to be in the key of C, and then you just adjust that accordingly. But it's where I saw more of it coming. The importance of it was back in around the Baroque era, which is about 1450 to 1800, where when I mentioned earlier about talking about classical music, that I started to use that for my studies. And here are all these tunings that I was finding that came from Bach and Beethoven, Johann Sebastian Bach, and who had influenced Mozart and Beethoven and Handel. And so now you've got like the well-tempered clavier, and that's where they started really bringing in the pitch and the sound. And then you can go back even further to Pythagoras, which there's a cool story about Pythagoras, is that he's like walking along and he hears a blacksmith hitting an anvil, and it starts creating all of these different types of frequencies that he starts to hear. And he started hearing these different musical pitches. Some were harmonic and others were disharmonic. And so this led him to experiment with these harmonic frequencies. And you got to think, this guy was pretty amazing with where he lived. He basically considered the spiritual godfather of sound medicine. He traveled all through Mesopotamia, Assyria, Greece, and Babylon. And he goes and he builds this instrument that's called a monochord, which is probably like a one-string guitar. And he finds that certain intervals on there start to get these harmonic values with it, and that was kind of basically the start of the string instruments and with pitch. He's got his own tunings that are developed through him as well.
So basically, these guys who were using classical instruments were extremely refined. So they were conscious that how sound and frequencies essentially affected the human body. I mean, it was known even by the ancient Egyptians how important sound was. In fact, they're suggesting that that's how they approached health, or they approached, treatments for any kind of ailments or is.
Oh yeah, just the frequencies they get out of Giza, out of the pyramid that's there, that is mathematically proportionate, is just that's one of my bucket lists. I've got to get over there because I want to go experience that and hear that. But you can search that on the web, just the magnificent stuff that has happened just in some of those chambers, in the chambers there.
Yeah, and that's where there's a reason for that. They were attuned to the earth more than they are now, in a sense, and they set up like the different pyramids and things, not just for tombs. They realized that there was something at a macro level that also put out a frequency. In fact, that's the frequency that they were trying to, if anything, get deep into their body when they had disease or sickness or illness. So is it true that essentially the sun puts out its own frequency?
Yeah. The sun has its own frequency. In fact, one of my albums I have is planetary frequencies, where the sun is at 126 hertz, and that's a track I have called Golden Consciousness. Mm-hmm. There's Mercury, Venus, Earth. The moon's got its own frequency. Earth has a couple of frequencies, and then of course we've got the Schumann resonance, and then we've got a couple frequencies inside the Schumann resonance as well. So there again lies the harmony through the universe, that we've got the sun spinning at 126 hertz, the earth is 194, and has some overtones that are other frequencies.
And if we could hold it there, 60 seconds, station break. Thanks. Right back.
Do you have any health challenges that concern you? If you said yes, you are ready to evolve yourself. Call today and qualify for a free pain treatment. 970-667 4669.
I'm Dr. Zdanowski, chiropractor, radio host, author of Evology, a new healthcare paradigm for the 21st century. My all-natural approach is affordable and can show improvement in as little as one visit. Truth be told, holistic health starts with a healthy life plan, and those who execute that plan over a consistent course catch up, heal, and thrive. I guarantee it. If your health is fading and on prescription drugs, if you want your energy back, deeper sleep, pain-free, or refocus an unresolved personal injury case, call me and let's get you in the best shape of your life. Schedule a visit with me, Dr. Z.
We are located at the Overland Trail Shops in LaPorte. Call 970-667-4669. EVOLyourself.com.
And thank you for staying attuned. Consistently on point is what is necessary, and what'll help us stay on point is allowing the template of these frequencies to work their way into our world, and we slowly harmonize to these frequencies. And these frequencies, without a doubt, have proven, in my experience, to basically bring you and help you to be on point. Because every choice we make in life is important. The choices we make affect our life. All right, so let's get back to it. We were talking about planet frequencies. And you were saying the Earth has a fluctuating frequency for the most part, but
The Earth's got a couple different ones. It's got its frequency is 194 hertz, and then you've got the Schumann resonance that rolls around inside there about 7.8 hertz as well, which is a theta frequency. Theta frequencies are typically, they're going to run around between 4 and 7 hertz in frequency, and then as each one of those is going to have another harmonic frequency that's going to be interrelated to it. If you look on what's called like an oscilloscope, and you can play a frequency on there, and you'll see it kind of come across with the other harmonious aspects, that is what's giving it the color or giving it the energy, so to speak. Just like we see like a green, there's going to be different shades of greens, or the other colors that make up that color of green are going to have the different frequencies that are going to blend together in the harmony of it all. And then you'd mentioned earlier that the Divine Frequencies, which is an album that I'd put out, which is called Harmonia Solfeggio Divine Frequencies. And there's about 432 is a universal one, 975, 864, and 753. So, and I won't go too much in the frequencies, but each one of those, again, has a certain tuning that I get for a pitch of it. And upon that, there is a musical note that goes with it. And that's how I build these compositions, so that where it's beneficial is that we go through our daily life and we're bombarded with the negative or the out of phase comments, such as we hear, nah, you didn't work hard enough today, or the family drama that happens at the house, to the workplace, whatever turmoil is going on there. How do we get our body back to its natural state? And these frequencies are a way that there's a lot of beneficial aspects on it that's led me to this wide variety of music and compositions that I've been playing with. It can be pick up visual images and mental objects, can help induce sleep. There's alpha ranges. And I've created SoundSync Tech, which incorporates both alpha and theta along with those frequencies.
I mean, that's great. I mean, what I do in my office is I use a low-level laser, and it's a cold frequency, so it's not on the hot side. And essentially, you could set that laser for alpha, theta, delta. And the reason why you would set those frequencies, in that direction is because everybody is, way above the beta level. Beta can go from, it's the largest range. So it's not like you're sort of kind of in beta. It's either you're in it or you're not. They're very distinctive places. And so once you're locked into that fight or flight and become auto-reactive and have all this family drama or stressors, we start to become negative in our own thought pattern. So we start to literally sabotage our own world because we have these negative thoughts. And a lot of times we have these negative thoughts because we're not thinking whole. And so what you basically have created is a way that somebody could put on headphones and start to allow their body to integrate and harmonize back to these healthy frequencies, correct?
Correct, absolutely. It's SoundSync technology that I've engineered into the music that I produce. It's a customized brainwave technology through the use of binaural beats, composition, tuning, and state-of-the-art recording technologies and frequencies that I have. One of the problems that I kind of see in today's day and age, that, again, I grew up in the 80s where sound was a lot different than what it is today. So as today we've got more access to better instruments or amplification systems to give us the frequencies. On the flip side, with a lot of the stuff that I'm seeing with the media, or much less on our computer systems, or these streaming services, they're taking these frequencies and they're squashing them down so that they can save on bandwidth for the listeners, and they're not really getting the full effect of all of those frequencies. So when you put on one of my albums and you've got your headphones plugged into your favorite MP3 player, unfortunately I don't think anybody has tape machines anymore, and I know vinyl's coming back, then they can be able to get the effect of where I'm creating that spatial space with the frequencies inside of their mind, inside their brain.
Good information. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we're back with Ted Winslow, sound healer. And take it.
And that's, like you were speaking about earlier, over time, problems can arise from this. And sound healing, I can't think of a better way to call my music other than really kind of sound healing, is that it's a way that we can energetically clean out this chest. So those times when I'm around 440 music or the dissonance, I'll put on my headphones or my sound system, and I'm fortunate I get to deal with this every day. This is all that I do, and get these frequencies that just equalizes me all out.
So, like we were talking about the 440 versus the 432 in particular, and I tend to think that everything is stimulation, and it's partly, if you want to say, by man-made design. People are overstimulated, and they'll reach this place called burnout. And when I see people burned out in my office, they rarely make sense because they're really speaking out of half their brain. I mean, it's literally, and if you're a left brain dominant person, you're more like a stockbroker. And if you're a right brain dominant person, you're more like the artist. But if you're not getting them two together, you're in trouble because the stockbroker doesn't see the big picture. Like, you don't need to make another $1 million to be happy kind of thing. Yep. And they don't see that. So they're headed for heart attack city, where the right brain might get overly, paranoid or, just overly judgmental of oneself. And they might be great artists or something to that degree, but they can't sell a lick of art because they have to kind of access that other quality. I mean, it's kind of like you have to, integrate to really be an effective person in life. And everything in modern times is trying to basically it interferes with that. And so it doesn't make it easier. And over a period of time, we lead to burnout. So that is what causes your first round of disease, you could say, your first, or dis-ease or stress system malfunction. So it's important to, so when I used to use basically I really always went back to it, but I thought to take the binaural beats, which is sort of like more like the white noise, I guess, and put it in my studying. When I was studying as a student, it was like, I knew that I wanted an integrated brain, and so I would make tapes for myself to, anatomy or whatever, and I'd have that sound underneath it. And I thought I was onto something. I think I was headed in your direction, but I think you were you were the representative for that. But nonetheless, I've always it's the main focus around my work is helping each patient essentially integrate. So this is a tool that patients can take home as homework for the most part. And, the way I see it is that any work they do before they come back to me is going to help me, because people are beyond stressed. They don't even realize they're stressed. So when I put on one of your frequencies and sound, I mean, immediately I could feel my cheeks flush. I could just feel that I was running ahead of myself. And so it definitely brought me to point within a relatively short period of time. And you do have samples online, correct?
Yeah. Actually, what I want to do for your listeners too. So
Yeah.
there's samplers online. You can find my music on Amazon. You can find it on iTunes. Most importantly, of course, I'm going to say my website.
Yeah, tell
which
us
is
your website. Yeah.
TedWinslow.com. And so your listeners can go on, you can get a free album. I actually have, I'm going to give away my Amazon best-selling album, Angelic Sound Healing, for the listeners that would like to get that, so they can hear what we're talking about.
Yeah.
They can experience it for themselves, and they can understand that, like, not to digress, and I'll give a coupon code and how they can get that, but when I was trying to find this relaxed state, and I'm going through all the studies, I'm sitting down with people that are talking about doing meditation, for 60 or 90 minutes. And I mean, God, I wish I had 90 minutes in a day that I could sit down and really go into the meditation. And I'm like, there's got to be a quicker way that I can get to this sooner. And so I've found that with my music, I'm doing it roughly around 6 minutes, that when I do, and I use biophotonic testing on clients so that they can see this as well, and I get instant feedback what's happening to their body in that 6 minutes. So I can explain that later.
Major changes is what I've observed, and it's really the same thing that I've used for years and years. It's before you kind of can pre-test and you get an idea of the energy field essentially, and if the energy is low, we tend to be more disease oriented, and if the energy is high, we tend to resist that. So as far as like when it comes to, so you listen to this, and over time, what is your experience, or what should people expect as they listen to it or as they use it? Because even one time could be major for sure, and yet at the same time, it's like, it's one of those things. It's a good thing, but you don't necessarily reach for it. But if you got yourself into the habit of putting on your headphones and listening 5 minutes every time you felt out of reactive, or anytime you felt less empowered, or you hear in your own mind negative thoughts, that's a good time to put that on, correct?
It's a great time, because we can control our own thoughts and create our own destiny manifestations.
What can I say? That's what Cosmic Living is all about. Bye for now. Tell a friend. From the nowhere to the now here. From the invisible to the visible. Broadcasting live from Fort Collins, Colorado. Thank you for joining me. Cosmic Living Radio. Cosmic Living Radio is a classroom on the air. And for today's class, I would like to connect the dots for this ending cycle of 2016. And if you have been with me since the beginning of this cycle, you will remember that we initiated it from the secret place of the Most High. And so Cosmic Living Radio is not only scientific, but it's practical, and it offers the connecting link between spirit, soul, and how to dial that into the physical form. The way we do this is by purifying the heart. And when we purify the heart, we become one, we become integrated. There are others out there that have been doing it for a very long time, and they too have been connecting the dots. And so I want to play a clip from William Henry, and this is a clip from Gaia.com, and I suggest you support them. But William Henry will be showing and demonstrating in this clip exactly what tone means. And because on the second half of this show we're going to have Ted Winslow on, I'd suggest you listen up to just show you how deep, profound, and cosmic life can be. Let's listen to the clip.
Regarding the key of life, it's intriguing to point out a bit of wordplay. The word aton could be pronounced a tone, suggesting an anointing by a tone or a vibration. The idea that our sun emits or rains a key of life upon Earth is actually based on solid science. For our sun is actually like a giant musical instrument. The entire sun vibrates from a complex pattern of acoustical waves. It actually rings like a bell and vibrates like an organ pipe. In fact, scientists estimate that the sun has 10 million keys or notes. And the National Optical Astronomy Observatory says we can learn a lot by listening to the sun. This NOAO image from an article on solar music shows the pattern of up and down movement from a single solar musical note. Red is up and blue is down. And this is the actual solar surface showing the up and down pattern of all 10 million solar musical notes played at once. Another ancient Egyptian belief about the sun, that it is a tunnel to heaven, is also supported by a new study that suggests that wormholes might exist between distant stars. So, is the sun actually the way the soul gets to heaven? Scientists at the Eurasian National University in Kazakhstan say that instead of being empty tunnels, these wormholes would contain what they describe as a perfect fluid, a quark gluon plasma that flows back and forth between the two stars. A perfect fluid. Is it possible that our sun produces the oil of perfection or the chrism? Or does the sun send tones that activate the oil within our soul?
Now I'd like to refer to Chapter 8 in my book, Evology, Tonal Healthcare, to just show you that we're all talking about the same thing here. Everyone who expresses health on Earth is resonating within a vast planetary tone. Something is either on tone or off tone. Tone, in the context of the physical body, is the expression of vibratory frequencies through matter. If tone is diminished in our bodies, there could be a developing illness. Tone, in the context of the mind, refers to our expressions, our life conditions. When one's expression is off, we're usually wrapped up in conflict with ourselves or others. All aspects of tone are complementary to each other. Tone facilitates a process of balance, wellness, and integration. As tone rings loud and clear through us and from us, we notice consciously that disease cannot coexist. So before you decide to rush yourself to an emergency situation within healthcare, which can cost a fortune, you might ask yourself, am I on tone? And guess what? Someone on tone is either learning how to or knows how to take care of their physical capacities, which means eating well, eating close to nature, avoiding, as many pesticides and herbicides and other fungicides and whatever, suicide. We need to avoid that and welcome this new creative cycle that's coming in 2017, which is actually, in my opinion, the original 2012 that people were looking for, but they didn't factor in that we are functioning from 4 BC. We're going to get into that next week. Anyhow, stay tuned. 60 seconds.
Do you have any health challenges that concern you? If you said yes, you are ready to evolve yourself. Call today and qualify for a free pain treatment. 970-667-4669.
I'm Dr. Zdanowski, chiropractor, radio host, author of Evology, a new healthcare paradigm for the 21st century. My all-natural approach is affordable and can show improvement in as little as one visit. Truth be told, holistic health starts with a healthy life plan, and those who execute that plan over a consistent course catch up, heal, and thrive. I guarantee it. If your health is fading and on prescription drugs, if you want your energy back, deeper sleep, pain-free, or refocus an unresolved personal injury case, call me and let's get you in the best shape of your life. Schedule a visit with me, Dr. Z.
We are located at the Overland Trail Shops in LaPorte. Call 970-667-4669. EVOL yourself.com.
And thank you for staying attuned. Cosmic Living Radio is a classroom on the air. You could also sign up for my podcast at gcnlive.com, and also the last 3 years of archives, free of charge. And so our next clip is a person who has been a big influence in my life. And this clip goes back to 1953.
The Earth itself is conceived to be a planet, a visible planet. We can perceive the fact that there is a larger, invisible planet, which relates to this particular part of the solar system. For with respect to every visible sun, there is what we might call the invisible counterpart. With respect to every planet that is conceived to be visible, there is the invisible counterpart. And this is not to be confused with the populations 1 and 2 idea, for that is with respect to the visible aspects in a particular realm or level of form and of consciousness to perceive that form, where I suggested the possibility of the positive and negative aspects of form. But in addition to this, we have the vast bodies of which are invisible forms insofar as our particular ability to perceive is concerned at this level of consciousness with respect to what we conceive to be form. For there certainly is form beyond the range of our ability to perceive form. And yet, by instrumentation, we are, it appears, scientifically determining that there is form where man did not know there was form in the universe. And that the invisible forms are larger or more vast in scope and area than the visible forms. Well, that correlates with the basic factors which you have been considering in our training school program, for instance, and our whole background of study in the Third Sacred School.
And that was Lloyd Arthur Meeker in 1953. And so the clip earlier in the show was from 2016. I think it was maybe August. I just published a revised edition of my book, which was from 2012. And none of that information was really connected on a program that I've done until now. And so I just wanted people to see that, I'm drawing from really amazing people and actualizing the teachings that have been here for a real long time. We act like we need more direction or we need somebody to save us. Well, I suggest we need to save ourselves. And so coming up is Ted Winslow. We're going to finish our discussion about sound and healing, and sound and color, and sound and brain integration, and sound and the positive theta states, and what he has done as a composer and engineer. So stay tuned. We're right back. And thank you for staying attuned. Cosmic Living Radio is a classroom on the air. And on this part of the show, we're talking with Ted Winslow. And Ted is going to give us some examples of success in helping those with, you could say, a post-traumatic stress, or really just stuck in the fight or flight, and how his sound therapy can help change that. Take it away, Ted.
Some of the people that, for the feedback or testimonies that I have a firefighter that was there on ground zero in New York. And I mean, he was out there forever, and he had a hard time getting to a normal state with everything that had happened to him on ground zero. Yeah. And he called in one time.
I mean, it affects their sleep, it affects their eating, it affects their family life, it affects their job, it affects their own confidence within themselves.
His life has changed. He's now able to spend more quality time with his children. He can sleep a normal sleep schedule at night, getting his body back to where it's supposed to be. Another funny one, the dentist. I mean, I don't know anybody that, no offense to dentists, I've got a good friend that's a dentist, but we don't like going into the dentist. And the worst sound in the world is the drill that they have. I got to figure out that frequency.
Yeah.
I think
right.
So back. And I have a dentist that she was listening to one of my shows one time and was getting ready to turn it off, but then she went ahead and listened to the music and downloaded it. And she had her lunch break. She went in there and sat down to it. And now every lunch break she sits down and listens to my music in her dental chair. And it's helped her clear her headache. Yeah. She'd have a headache. Well, I can imagine she'd have a headache from the pitch of the drill.
Well, the last thing people want to do when they're stressed out of reactive in fight or flight is downshift. It's a phenomena that I find that it's what they need, but it's kind of like you need to either, grab them like I would in the office and just kind of try to, bring them to point in themselves, or, it's kind of like, what is that going to do for me? That's the skepticism that comes with it, because they're stressed out of reactive, they're in the fight or flight, so they're not really receptive to even hearing, what? Put this thing on and listen? Like, it's like almost irritating to a stressed out person. But if you kind of just do it, like get to the gym sort of thing, and don't think about it, just go. When you're there, you actually enjoy it, and it starts to make a difference, and it's a positive addiction because it's really bringing the body back to harmony, alignment, integration, and that's what makes an effective person in living.
Yeah, feeling more centered, feeling more present. We're able to feel like we're really standing in our true power and being in our true self. And that fight, I love that analogy, the fight or flight. You know, you think of a horse can't fight, and it's like, oh my God, it's out of there. It's gotta be in the flight mode. And the fight mode, you're always in that with your fists up. What's the acidic level that you're creating with the water in your body? That's just the lactic acid building up and being tense and just getting ready to pummel what that is next. And with this music, at the end of the day, when we're supposed to unwind, I mean, I know we want to have high energy, and the music helps balance that energy, so to speak, so that you're now more harmonious. You're not all tensed up. You're not all clenched. You can get to that proper nutrition level for sleep, eating, and creating other healthy habits with that.
I mean, so there's this. I mean, this isn't just oovy groovy. I mean, you have this scientific research called biophotonic imaging. And,
right.
And that basically, I mean, your average person doesn't realize that we have an energy field outside of our, in a sense, we're like almost 9 feet tall energy wise, and physically we emit that.
Yeah.
And so there's a way to pick that up, right? I mean, it's
right. Yeah.
And you can see when it's, dissonant, or the body itself is out of reactive, or the frequencies are in a imbalance of some sort. You could literally pick it up. Is it on the finger?
Yeah, if they can use it on the finger. I've been able to take it where I can measure waves through a separate device, where I've gone out to Sedona, Arizona, to one of the vortexes out there, and was able to pick up the energy waves there at the vortex. And it's the biophotonics is basically the convergence of the photonic and the life sciences. It's a technology of generations that's really manipulation and detection of light through the use of photons. It's in the quantum-like particles that are of light instead of electrons to transmit and process and store information. So it's a science measuring the energy field that we have. In my case, I use it to do the human energy field with my music. I've known that the 440 playing that, I couldn't relax at night. What happened if I throw in this tuning of 528? What does it do to my body? Not only does it what to do to my body, what does it do to your body? Because our bodies are completely different.
And we'll be right back. And thank you for staying attuned. Cosmic Living Radio is a classroom on the air. Today's guest is Ted Winslow, and we're talking about sound and how sound can help the brain integrate and allow for an easier alignment after a stressful day at work or at the end of a long cycle. And so if we need to get ourselves focused and dialed and we need a little assistance, one of the most natural ways to do that is with music, because it helps you get on tone. Please continue, Ted.
One of the biggest questions I get is they're like, okay, well, Ted, I have this, and this, and this, and I can't prescribe, and I'm not a doctor, but I'm like, your body is going to thirst for the frequency. I've got, I don't even know how many tracks it is now that's on Amazon and iTunes, that your body can go and pick it up. So it's like a smoothie. We know that if we drink carrot juice, it's going to be good for us. But if we have kale inside of that with ginger and turmeric and apples, we're getting a variety of all this, which is much more healthy for us than what that one carrot juice is going to be. And that was where the point I was coming through with my music. I had the benefit, how I got onto the biophotonic imaging is there's this Russian scientist, a lot of this originated out of Russia, and he happened to be coming through Colorado and talking to somebody, and they said, oh, you ought to talk to Ted Winslow.
No way. All right.
And I mean, what are the odds or the chances? And I just had that afternoon open, and he was up at Gaia, or now Gaia television station.
Mm-hmm.
And so they called me up and they said, this Dr. Constantine would like to meet you. Dr. K would like to meet you. We've got a pass here for you. Can you come up and meet with him? We sat down. I started talking to him, and he realized what I was doing with technology. There was some other stuff I was doing with technology, and lo and behold, Guillaume sends me out to their corporate headquarters. He goes back to he teaches at the university in St. Petersburg in Russia. He gets his head engineer and flies him out. And so I meet this head engineer, and we meet at the corporate headquarters out in Cincinnati. And we're just like going to town with calibrating these devices and learning everything on them and playing with them and how to best utilize this technology. So they've been playing with this technology over there, and it's pretty cool because the principles of data interpretation is kind of a variety, because it deals with traditional Chinese medicine, so there's measuring some of the meridians, Ayurveda, measuring the chakras, Western medicine, where it's measuring the system in the body and the organs. So
Yeah, I mean, essentially, like, we're just awakening to that in the West, but as far as the chakra system goes. But at the same time, what I've learned, you balance out the central nervous system, you're pretty much balancing out the chakras. If you're balancing out the endocrine, so in Western terms, so don't be intimidated with the Eastern terms in a sense, because it's really, when you bring the body back to harmony, everything really does come back to balance, including the brain hemispheres and your chi and all that stuff really needs to be preserved. We have a hedge about us, and we should keep that hedge about us, and that's our immune system in a sense. And so these frequencies, I mean, the way I describe it, people realize that, a smoothie is good. They realize, a good atmosphere is good, or, just being around positive people is good, or staying away from negative people is sometimes good. And the reason for that is because it kind of, one makes us tense and one makes us have pretty much pleasure and joy. And so, like you were saying, you get attracted to it. And so certain people need certain frequencies to balance them out, and other people might need the opposite frequencies in a sense, and in a sense you could say the 440 could be good for someone if they need a little kick in the butt.
Yeah,
in a sense, and that could be their sound medicine.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, and so that's where, like, people don't realize holistic means whole. So you need to approach the whole. And, but literally, like magnetics, if you were using therapeutic magnets or crystals or, sound, it's literally a food. It's a nutrient. And when you're deprived of it, you are malnourished in something, and it's not really focused, well in the West. That's extremely important, because you're imbalancing these meridians, you're imbalancing the chakras, you're imbalancing the brain hemispheres, the hormone levels. So if people are in a healthy routine, they should include this. They could exercise to this and because a lot of times when people exercise, they think they need to get excited, but really you want to stay integrated. Your left and your right side need to work together. And so if the brain hemispheres are off, when you are exercising, your physical body is literally off.
Absolutely.
To the point where you're creating so much damage on one side versus the other. And that's where exercise is, you want to be in an integrated state, not an outer reactive state.
That's a great point. I had the fortune of playing semi-pro football for a couple of years, and then I've coached high school football and youth football. And that's the one thing that I always believed in with exercising, is that I always tell my athletes, what you do on one side, you have to do on the other side, because you might be a great wideout on the right side, but you got to know how to play that left side just as well too. You can't be doing the same pattern, because the body, there's got to be a balance that's there.
I mean, that's something I did. I actually tried to work with high school kids back in my hometown where I went to school and played football, because what I learned was that, like, football players think they should come out and be really excited and we're gonna win and all this stuff. But the minute that first hit happens, it's like, whoa, this is gonna be a long game. Versus, what we figured out was everybody needed to stay calm almost like in a theta state, almost like you're literally, the theta state is the state where when you sit down in the evening, you feel like you're falling, or you catch yourself falling, and you realize you're falling asleep, and you're going into the delta states. So, but anyhow, if you could stay as calm as possible during a football game, then when you get that first hit, then the adrenaline soars, and you could ride that for 2 hours. But if you come out and you've already spent an hour worth of adrenaline, you're pretty much feeling quite vulnerable.
Spent,
Yeah.
That's when you take that first hit, you're going to get that bone crushing blow. How do you relax your body so that you're not so tensed up and going against the direction of the motion that's going to, hopefully he's not a 300-pounder takes you. But
yeah.
I mean, you probably see clients come in that try to go to the gym at that 100. I've got a buddy of mine who was a competitive bodybuilder, and he goes to the gym. He's got to be on at 110%. And watching somebody go stand on a bench press and kick out 500 pounds, and now all of a sudden he's wondering why his biceps are tearing and his joints are demolished. And I'm like, brother, you can't be doing that. You've got to learn to find that balance. There's a certain point to go to that you want to tear some tissue to build the muscle, but then there comes another point that's walking that line of damage.
Yeah,
and
it's you stop using your brain, and you're using the brawn, and really somebody who's an athlete for the long term, if you don't learn that and adapt to using your brain more, you're pretty much going to muscle your way through it, and you're going to be imbalanced, and that's how, like, people tend to be right-sided dominant, but that's connected by the left brain.
Yeah.
So that person, your friend who's doing the benching, he doesn't see the big picture, or he's not choosing to see the big picture because he's in this excited mode, the fight or flight, and that puts you in half your brain, and you're literally just geared up to survive in that moment, but there's really nothing to survive. It's not, it's not life-threatening, but the body takes it as life-threatening. And so his hormones and his adrenals are basically overworking when they can get the job done with half that energy. And it's kind of like, if an athlete can learn that, that's how they become really effective. And the ones that muscle themselves, they're going to have a short career because they're really just going to use one side more than the other. And if you don't learn to use both sides and integrate, essentially you're going to wear down. And so that's, important. And part of that is breathing properly. Do you help your clients kind of learn about breathing, or because that
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, because breathing basically will change brainwave frequencies too. Just simply the act of breathing from the belly will influence the brain to help it integrate. And it's...
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've got the 0.2 that's at the point where you've exhaled the breath just before you take the next breath, which is supposed to be real nurturing. I don't go too much into that unless I'm working with a client on like vocal toning. They want
right,
to.
because you do that too, right? You're a vocal coach.
Yep, I've got a couple albums that are out there on singing scales, and what I'd actually done is I've incorporated 432 in one set and 528 in the other set. And I don't have it on there, but that way, if you think that we're practicing at a higher frequency, it's going to be giving us much more beneficial with our tone and shaping our tone. I know that most of them then afterwards are going to go into what atmosphere they're at, and hopefully they're not tuning to 440, but they're going to have to. But at least they've been getting the healing through those frequencies as they tone themselves, because our body is our own resonant chamber, with creating our own sound in our own unique way, that we have this God-given ability to do it through our bones, our mass, our lungs acting as our bellows. So I talk a little bit about breathing with that. There's a lot of information that people can find on that, where I'm always kind of more or less explaining about frequencies in the music. But it's a very, very important aspect on it, as you just touched on.
It's really learning about the cycles of ebb and flow.
Yeah.
And in our Earth, we have the 4 seasons. We have this ebb and flow happening all the time. So it's kind of like if we run ahead of that, we find ourselves a lot of times in a bad way. But if we allow the Earth's frequencies or the nature frequencies to dominate our world, we tend to stay in harmony with our world too, is what I find personally. Well, stay tuned. We have one more set coming up. Our guest is Ted Winslow, and you could learn more about him by doing a search online. There's plenty on YouTube and Amazon. Stay tuned. And thank you for staying attuned. Let's get back to our discussion with Ted Winslow. There's so much junk food in health food stores now that you really need to be an expert to spot it. And so there's a lot of corruption out there, so you could fall into that pretty easy. So prevention is way better than trying to treat a disease. And so you focus more on that for people before they actually manifest something in that sense. So they start to learn how to reharmonize essentially daily, and if you reharmonize throughout the day, you're reharmonizing throughout the week, and you're reharmonizing over the months and then the years, and cycle after cycle. Before you know it, you're pretty on point. And then it's like, wow, I'm healthy and life seems to be really working out.
See, and that's the beauty of this, because there's so much destruction that's kind of coming through, as you kind of talked on with the food supplies, the water supplies. I mean, we've got the government's using HARP frequencies, which they're shooting a 3.6 million watt energy into the sky, and I think what a big AM radio station broadcasts about 50,000 watts. So that's it, and that's frequencies that we're not going to necessarily know about, that they've used for changing weather patterns and stuff. The food's changing. So, but I don't want to go off on the negative aspects of that, because we're raising our consciousnesses, we're raising our vibration with the earth in the direction that a lot of us waking up and that we're going to. We understand the benefits of taking the time to go through those ingredients in the store to find out what's going to be healthy for us and give us the most energy and nutritional value, instead of just a dead package of something that's just going to probably fill my tummy up.
Yeah.
That's been genetically modified. And that's with these frequencies is help. There's so many frequencies that we deal with our body and our energy systems. Love is a whole frequency of itself, and that's probably like the biggest thing out there that everybody wants to know. Well, if you haven't have it, I'm fortunate that I do. That where do I find that true love? How do I find that person that's that same frequency that I'm at, and to hold that bond? I mean, there's a great frequency that's right there to those memories that you had in the innocence of childhood, that you had a phenomenal energetic experience that might have been with your, as a family event, or with your first crush, or your first pounding rock song that you gave you all the energy to be able to feel you could take on the world for that day.
Yeah. So frequencies matter is what you were saying about the harp. I mean, there's something there, is for sure. I mean, the science is there. It's easy to be, kind of, wow, that's new agey, and it really isn't, because sound goes back to the beginning of time. In fact, that's how this universe was created. They suggest it was a sound, and if you want to look at it from the light perspective, it's photonic energy, and essentially you're talking biophotonic testing. So we have photons within ourselves, and these photons, when they're low, they also, what will go hand in hand is dis-ease or stress system malfunction. And when they're high in our system, and when we're getting into our system, then we manifest health. And it's hard to believe that sound can actually do what it does, but it's really, music is the last thing when it comes to, they've done research with, a deteriorating mind. The last thing people do hold on to is their love for music, and it's extremely therapeutic on top of that. So to get music into our seniors' hands and into the elders' hands, it really brightens their day. That's just listening to some of the music they liked when they were growing up. This is what you're providing is truly sound medicine, because it's the intent that you're putting into it is to bring about harmony within the body. And that harmony, it affects every level: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. It's not like a, kind of, it can get more specific, but overall, it's what it's promoting. So music and sound and vibration and pulsations and rhythms. And so if we don't kind of mind our own, right, we most likely will find ourselves out of reactive, or just like with the food, if we don't really take the time to make sure it's healthy, even though it was bought in a healthy place, that's not good enough anymore, because they'll slip you junk.
Yeah, they're changing labels to make you believe that it's healthy when it's really not. So it's pretty cool thinking the universal language that we're dealing with on harmony and bringing our body back into activations and feeling more connected with our higher selves, and the release of beliefs that really don't do us any good. And it's with these frequencies to put us back in balance.
Well, good information, Ted Winslow at tedwinslow.com. This has been A Secret Too Long. Please tell a friend, a family member about Cosmic Living Radio, and let's have a new and exciting 2017 cycle. Join me next week. Bye for now.